Oh, good morning. Just got back from a little wander up the road here, around where I often film the Carabao and early morning scenes. I decided to venture a bit further around the bend, so to speak, and in doing so, I stumbled across a number of things that caught my eye. One, of course, was early morning wash-up time, or should I say, scoop time. There was an elderly gentleman near what can only really be described as a rag, a rag, a rag shackle, anyway, a sort of a hut, put together with what looks like the black building paper that many of you know that you put behind the brickwork, behind the framework, like a vapor barrier. And it was held together by further pieces of bamboo on a frame, which were carefully laid over the top, a bit like scales on a fish. And inside there was an old lady, but outside there was this old gentleman, and I said good morning to him in Maganda no Maga, and he replied to me. We've seen each other on a number of occasions on my walk, but this morning he was standing there in his, not quite completely naked, but in a pair of what we would call jockeys, just a pair of underpants, basic. And he was standing in what was really a bowl of water with a bucket next to it, having his morning ablutions, one might say. He was brushing what teeth he had and washing himself at the same time. And the lady stood in the doorway, or what was the entrance to this little shack, gesturing me, come inside, come in, come and sit down. And I looked at him, I said, it's okay, the husband. And he said, yeah, go inside, please. Salamat. And so I went in and I sat down on a bamboo made little stool, a little long bench stool inside. And you can't help but look around where you're sitting there. She's talking very little English. And we're sort of having a conversation as such, with sign language and laughter. And I noticed they had a emergency lighting system operating inside the house. And also a TV, an old-fashioned TV, you know, the ones with the tube. And I asked her, well into the conversation, if the TV worked, you know, does it work like that? She said no. And I tried to explain to her that I used to have a friend who used to get old TVs like that and fix them because they were much easier to fix with diodes and bits and pieces. And often he was able to get them to work quite easily for maybe 150 pesos maybe. But clearly they're piggybacking on somebody's electric in there because they wouldn't have sufficient to even pay the minimum on a power account. They don't appear to have any form of income. I think I have seen him helping to plant out rice on occasion, which of course he would get payment in sorts, bits and pieces, and when the crops came out he would maybe get a couple of sacks. But he had a little rice cooker there, electric one, and he was making rice for the early morning breakfast, and they had some dry fish there. So their breakfast was dried fish and rice, and he offered me a coffee. I was quite surprised, but it goes to show you how, even in abject poverty, how the Philippines see the giving of what is really their last meal almost to a stranger. But it also points out that we as foreigners, so many of us, you can see it on video blogs, I mean, as a great comparison, an absolute great comparison. You've got that guy who was going to turn his house into a piggery. He's now with his tail between his legs living in America. And he's always complaining about life here in the Philippines. And I think, what does he know? Really, what does he know? While you sit there and give judgment on the rest of the community out here, of course there are people at the other end of the spectrum that never have to worry about money, especially those that have families that are involved maybe in the most recent discovery of billions of pesos gone missing out of supposed flood protection projects. Astounding how these things happen, and well, it's not astounding, but it's astounding how they wiggle and squirm when they all know they're all part of it, right from the top down. And they say, oh, we're going to get you for libel. You can't say that about them. Well, of course, that's what money can do. It can buy you silence. More than likely, the brave ones that decided to, and are they brave? They decided to tell all, so to speak. And of course, all of the ones they've named have all said, no, we're not involved in any of that. We're going to sue you for libel, which is, of course, their right. And no doubt they'll cause problems, but I would think that those two individuals that were flanked by a lot of security the other day on TV will be wondering when it's their last breath, because you don't tit-tat on people here for very long and stay on the planet. But back to the reality of things. We talk about middle class, poor people, abject poor people, homeless people. And even when you look at the homeless that have been highlighted, foreigners who've fallen on hard times, they have no concept of what it's like to live surrounded by mud, surrounded by no hope, surrounded by not much more than what they're standing in. The old lady, she obviously every day she tries to be respectable, but I doubt she's even got the money to do a proper wash of her clothes. What clothes she has are virtually rags. But she has a certain pride about herself. While she was sitting there talking to me, she was brushing her hands through her husband's hair, showing clearly the bond that they have together. After all, what else have they got in life? But one begs the question, what happens if one, or especially if one, the husband, passes away? Who's going to look after mum? Who's going to look after his wife? Is she just going to fade away in that dreadful location? You know, we worry about being able to have the right speed of internet. We worry about having American-style food or Western-style food. I know we can't give money to everybody. And giving money isn't always the answer. In fact, most of the time it's not. But just realizing the desperation that some people are in can have a stabilizing effect on how lucky we really are, being able to fall back on a pension from our country that provides us with a reasonable, if not good, standard of living. If we choose to reset our lives to focus on things that are more important than colour TVs and the latest model telephone, or the next version of the Toyota Hilux four-wheel drive. Guys, you know, it's about setting goals in life, allowing yourself to work out what it costs to actually live a reasonable life for yourself and your family. It's always going to be a bit more when you have a wife or wife and children, but inevitably it's up to you. You have to learn that magical word. It's called no, because the word no often means to a Filipina, right, okay, we have to make ends meet. Now, how are we going to do that? And she'll always come up with a way. If you remind her that life isn't just a case of going to an ATM to get the next amount of money out. It's about targeting what's important, what is needed. Do we need to buy this? Do we really want that? Would it not be better to put it aside for later, something that we hadn't planned on? So that's my thought for today. Nothing earth-shattering, but nevertheless something to think about. If you like this video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Come on guys, thumbs up, costs you nothing. When you see my video, just press thumbs up before you even watch it. It will bring people back here. It will make people more aware that I exist and that some way I can maybe add a little bit of thought to what you're planning to in life. Bye now.